Hey y'all, thank you for joining me on another video. My voice is still kind of cracking, so excuse me. Finally starting to get over that cold, that crud everybody's been getting. Today I want to talk about some things that being in a relationship with a narcissist, what their personality is like. Um, you might be involved with a narcissist if everything is about them. The entire universe revolves around them, their needs, their wants, um, everything. Somebody looks in their direction. They're looking at that. They automatically say, oh, they're looking at me, they want to fight. Um, when chances are the person couldn't even tell you what that individual looked like, they were looking just in that direction. You might be involved with a narcissistic person if they never take accountability for anything. Everything is either your fault or everybody else's fault. Or I only did this because if you wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have had to do that. If you were a better spouse, I wouldn't have had to cheat. If you wouldn't have looked at my phone, you would have never known. You might be involved with a narcissistic individual if they accuse you of things that they're doing. Um, a big thing that I was always accused of was cheating. Ironically, I would never cheat. I never cheated on him. I'm not going to sit here and say I was never tempted. It took a lot of prayer asking God to give me the strength to not act within my loneliness. But I can honestly say that I never cheated, and it didn't occur to me really. I mean, the temptations happened because out of loneliness. But with him, oh, he cheated on me all the time. I know now of several instances where he cheated on me. And I know of a couple that may not have been successful, but not because he didn't try. I'm finding all of this out now, of course, and piecing things together. I remember going to work on the rare occasion that he would let me drive to and from work. Um, if I was more than 5 minutes past the time that he felt I should be home, he was calling me. Where are you? What are you doing? I'm on my way home. Why is it taking you so long? Traffic. It's 5 in the afternoon. There's a lot of traffic. Well, why did you take the long way home? No, I didn't. There's just a lot of traffic. Or accuse me of purposely taking longer just so I didn't have to be at home. When, yeah, towards the end, that was definitely a consideration, but I knew I couldn't because I knew that he would be blowing up my phone wondering where I was. Little things like at work, I worked at a call center, so in between calls, I was able to check my phone, see if he texted me, and if we got busy where I would literally get one call after another. I'd hang up with one call, bam, another call. Hang up with that one, bam, another call. You can't predict these things. And a half hour later, or an hour later, and things finally start settling down, I look at my phone and notice I have a mini novel worth of texts getting ticked off at me, saying I'm purposely not answering because I'm trying to antagonize him, and I'm paying attention to someone else, and there's someone else that has my attention that I'm interested in at work. First of all, I was one of the oldest ones at my job. Most of the people that worked there were 30s or younger. The few that were older or in my age group were executives. And so they wouldn't give me the time of day. They couldn't. Not to mention they were all married. So that wasn't even a thing. And I would later find out that through education after I left him, that what narcissistic people accuse you of, they're doing. A big thing, a narcissist, you may be with a narcissistic individual if they're continually accusing you of having a wandering eye. One thing with me was we would be in the car together, he would be driving, and I stare off a lot. I'll stare off and go into space mode where I barely even realize I'm on this earth. You know, I'm just kind of spacing off. Or something weird will catch my attention. You know, a squirrel eating 2 nuts instead of just one. You know, 2 acorns instead of just one. Or, you know, who knows? And if a man happens to walk in that line of path, he would accuse me of looking at the man, when chances are I couldn't tell you what he looked like, because I wasn't looking at the man. I was looking at the funny looking roof, the funny colored roof. Like, there are some roofs here in my town that are purple. Who knows? And I was looking at the purple roof. Or, you know, a guy that had a very funny Dr. Seuss type hat. So I was looking at the guy, but I was looking at his hat. And he would accuse me of having that wandering eye. His biggest thing was, one day I brought up that, I said, you know me, I people watch. And he called it lame and said that was my excuse for having a wandering eye. No, people interest me. I love sitting like at an outdoor cafe or something and just watching people walk by and seeing them on their phone or talking and having conversations. You know, that's just what I do. You might be with a narcissistic individual if you're living in constant fight or flight mode, walking on eggshells, wondering when the next shoe is going to drop. With me and what I went through, and through all of my education, you know, doing research, looking things up and stuff, learning, I found that this is definitely not uncommon, where you literally weigh every single word you say in hopes that he understands, or he or she understands what you're saying, doesn't misinterpret, and causes a big blow up. What I've come to find out is they purposely act like they misunderstand you just to control you, to get you to have to keep explaining things and being nervous. He would do this all the time. My ex, I would explain something completely clear, precise, not using, $1 million words, just using everyday language, and he would purposely take my words, twist it to mean something totally different, and get offended or act like he's offended and start a whole big blow up, and then an hour or two later act like, oh, you meant that. Well, why didn't you say so? I did about 2 hours ago, but you didn't catch it. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I gotta pay more attention. You do that. You might be with a narcissistic individual if apologies are empty, where they apologize for what they did, but it's a backhanded apology. Well, I'm sorry you felt that way. I'm sorry that I yelled at you. I gotta control my temper more. But yet, they do the same thing over and over. An apology is nothing without change, or at least where you can see they're trying to get better. Or they won't even apologize. There have been plenty of times where my ex would yell, scream, holler at me, and call me every name in the book and make up some of his own, and yet only apologize for the anger. Not apologize for the horrible names he'd call me, or the derogatory remarks. Just apologize for the anger. That's if I even got an apology. A lot of times I didn't even get an apology because it wasn't his fault. Somehow it was always my fault. You might be with a narcissistic individual if holidays are always ruined. He loved Halloween. He would go all out to celebrate Halloween, to decorate, and to his credit, he was pretty talented at it. He had a very good imagination and could come up with some wonderful ideas for spooky decorations and stuff. So Halloween was never ever ruined. July 4th was also a favorite of his because he liked to blow up things. Kind of gives you a clue at his personality. So again, July 4th was never ruined. Thanksgiving was sometimes ruined. Usually by the end of the night there was an argument of some sort. Christmas, oh my goodness, was always ruined somehow or another. In the morning time, when the kids would be opening their presents, things were usually pretty decent. Um, but then something would happen. I remember one particular Christmas. This is before my youngest was born. I was, in fact, pregnant for him. And that was the first Christmas we were up here in Nebraska. It was a very tough time. We didn't have a whole lot of money. I put the kid's name in with Salvation Army to be adopted, adopted by by someone so they would at least get presents because we couldn't afford much at all. Well, God blessed us with a company that um, not only made sure the kids got everything they wanted, um, gave things to me and my husband, a beautiful coat, because I didn't have a heavy coat, didn't really need one down in New Orleans, including a dining room set, kitchen table set, table and chairs. And so it was, the kids didn't know, they were just opening presents and ecstatic. Fortunately, I've been blessed, my kids were always grateful for whatever they got. And they were opening the presents and so ecstatic. They were getting new shoes, game system they wanted, you name it. And my ex wanted to play a particular CD, a Christmas album from Celine Dion. Couldn't find the CD for anything. Found one of her other CDs that we had at the house, but couldn't find the Christmas one. Looked all over. Got so angry that, especially when he found one of her other CDs that we had and he thought it was the Christmas one, and then he discovered that it wasn't, he took the CD and popped it in half out of anger and said, F this, I'm just going to bed. I went to bed because he had worked that night, so he hadn't even been to sleep yet. He came home, kids were awake, so they opened all the presents and everything, and they weren't even finished opening presents when he went off, all because couldn't find the Christmas CD he wanted. Because he wanted to play that while the kids were opening their presents to create some sort of atmosphere or whatever. Who knows what was in his mind. But because he didn't get what he wanted, he was going to ruin it for everybody. And he did. The kids, it breaks my heart to think about how the kids were upset and they were so quiet after that. They opened their presents and they were whispering, Mom, look. Oh, wow, Mom, look. And because they didn't want to wake them up. You might be with a narcissistic individual if they have their favorite child. They have a golden child where that child could do no wrong, and they have a scapegoat of a child where everything that's wrong is that child's fault. That happened with us. My oldest was the scapegoat. My youngest was the golden child. The youngest could do no wrong, and it was more than just because he was the baby, and there was that, but it was way more than that. It was, for whatever reason, he was the favorite. In looking back, it was probably because he wanted to manipulate. He couldn't manipulate the other two. Um, the oldest would be open about what happened and his anger and call him out on it. So, of course, you know, and the oldest would stick up for me. And so, because of that, he said that the oldest was my favorite when he wasn't. Um, I was laxed on, I gave in a lot to the oldest, let him do things that, uh, you know, things like staying on the game, his game system for hours and hours and hours, because I was so busy fighting my ex that I didn't want to fight both of them. It was easier just to let him stay on it rather than fight him and say, nah, you've been on the screen enough. Time to get off. And so the youngest, on the other hand, he, let's say being a kid, did something wrong, and I would ground him from his game system and from the computer. I'd come home to find him on the computer. And I would look at my ex and I told him he was grounded. I know, but he came up to me and he said he was sorry, and I just couldn't say no. And it's like, you realize it was pulling your chain. Because we would talk, I'd want to talk about it in private, in a room, not around the kids. And so I would tell him, you realize he was pulling your chain, because he knew he would get what he wanted if you did that. And he's like, oh no, he was really sorry. So I got to the point where I stopped correcting him, because he would never back me up on any discipline with the kids. But yet, if I even talk to him, hey, look, can we let up? No, you're not going to back me up, and that would start a whole big argument. You might be with a narcissistic individual if everything is an argument. You say something simple as, oh, look at the beautiful blue the sky is. No, it's not, it's green. Okay, it looks blue to me, but maybe my eyes aren't seeing totally right. How could you say that it was blue when it was completely green? It was obvious. Are you crazy? Simple as that. And I learned to backtrack some at everything I said. If he would ask me advice on something, like if I saw something he was seeing, it was a trap. It was a test to see if I was going to be on the same, same page as him. And it got to the point where I'd say, oh yeah, totally. I totally see. But if it was something that I knew was blatantly wrong, I would say, I could so see how you would say that. But this is what I'm seeing. I'm not saying I'm right, but this is what I'm seeing. And if I worded it like that, it usually didn't cause an argument. But there were a lot of times where I'd say, well, this is, my opinion is this. How could you think that way? Are you crazy? It's like this. It's this. And I would admit, oh, you know what? Brain fog. I'm sorry. Don't mind me. You're right. It is totally like that. Just because I didn't want another argument. You might be with a narcissistic individual if the relationship drains everything out of you. If you're exhausted dealing with them and their antics, where just being around them makes you instantly tired or makes your body react, to where you do what's called body armoring, where your body literally stiffens up and you don't even realize it. It's like a literal knee-jerk reaction. Might be a time to think about your options and make a plan. Thank you. Be blessed.